Hey everybody, this is Miriam Mick with How to Live into Peace. You can tell it's not the nighttime chat. I have to redo last night's chat. It's on the Facebook page, but in order for me to upload it to the website, I have to redo it. So maybe this would be a better version. Yesterday was the eclipse day, special in South Carolina. So I hope you were able to celebrate that wherever you were. Today's topic is healthy boundaries and how to set healthy boundaries so for the sake of our peace. Setting healthy boundaries in our own lives for ourselves, making some rules that we don't want to break are important. Setting those rules are important. Also, setting boundaries with those with whom we're in relationship is also important. In order to talk about that, what I realize is that even though I set this topic about 2 months ago, setting healthy boundaries is not just as simple and concise as I thought it might be. So today what we're going to be talking about too are the different natures that we have. There are tons of personality systems. The Myers-Briggs is very complicated, and the Enneagram is also fairly complicated. So what we're going to do is back up from personality development to the natures, the energy profile we come in with. This is the work of Carol Tuttle, and her book will show backwards, but it's The Child Whisperer, from which I'm getting these 4 types, and just able to tell a little bit about each type, enough for us to be able to discuss if we are, and we are all one of these 4 types, if we are one of these 4 types, what making boundaries in our relationships might look like for us, and how others might receive the way that we are naturally making boundaries. The purpose is that we might be at peace, and having an awareness of our own nature, which is our energy profile, our own nature, and then being able to be aware that others are not like us. They don't have our nature. So my boundaries that are normal and feel safe for me are going to be very different from your boundaries that you feel are normal and safe. And if we have a great deal of difference, then somebody's going to have to pull back what normally would be a boundary and allow the other person to keep their boundary and their safety line. There are variables. The more stress we're in, the more closed in our boundaries become. I learned this particularly during the hospice work. When we find out about the end of our lives, we begin to pull in our boundaries. We begin to say goodbye to those those people on our outer circle. And then we begin to pull in so that we're surrounded at the end of our lives with only those people that we want to share intimately the end of our life and our feelings, and maybe some of the more tough parts of that journey, but also the sacred parts of that journey. So there's stressors that also affect the boundaries that we might want to have, whether we're at the end of our lives or not. If we're having a tough day, if you're like I am, you don't want to share a whole lot of that with other people till you become, with my energy type, we're about helping people be happy. And so if I'm bringing people down, that's when I want to pull in. So let's get to these 4 energy types that Carol Tuttle defines in this book, but also talks a lot about in a lot of different ways, from how to raise children and grandchildren. I recommend this book highly. I wish I'd had it when I was raising my children, so I would know a little bit more how to respect their boundaries and how to understand where they were coming from, and even help them dealing with each other in relationship. So the first energy type is just type 1. Carol is trying to avoid the labeling and the types, but still there are ways to identify them. Type 1 is deals with the world. Their way of connecting to the world is socially. So they're all about being in relationship with other people. They have an energy that's bouncy and random. Their minds work in a bouncy and random way, so that what someone else might think is not connected in their minds is totally connected. And I confess this is my energy. So as a child, the movement is quick, and I was called a bull in the china shop. I was kind of a loud child, and so in that day and time when it was okay to be seen and not heard, being raised in the 50s and 60s by parents who were World War II era, they wanted children to be quiet and not to be seen. And so what happens is we come in with this energy type, and then the reaction we get from our community, from our culture, from our religion, we begin to be structured differently than maybe our energy type is true to us. So we come in with this energy, and then our personality is created because of the reactions to our energy and the ways in which we have to develop behaviors that may be different to our energy. And so our energy sometimes is covered up because this child, the thing they want from their parents is to make them happy. They want happy parents. They want happy families. They want, they need to have fun. And if parents are not so happy and they want the structured child, then having fun is not their goal. We get molded by how we are affected in that family of origin and the community. So often when we're adults, these energies do grow up with us, but often as adults, and these energy types are more pure than personality typing. And so for me, I have found a lot of my truth in pulling back. I know a lot about my personality, but being able to pull back to the original energy. And then even to the point of dressing ourselves in colors that resonate with that energy, having a hairstyle. Carol goes a long way to help us live into that truth of our energy type. Now, if I'm an energy type 1 and I'm about helping people be happy, my boundaries are going to be open to whoever's in front of me at that moment, to being able to communicate with them, be social with them, to find happiness wherever we can find it. Not always giddy, funny, but to be able to go with those folks into a place that can help them move from that place to happiness. There's a little bit of 2 in there. That's my secondary energy. But let's say I walk into a room, I'm wide open, that my boundaries are open, I'm ready to connect with the group. Someone who is of another energy type might find that more too aggressive, too assertive, and might find my energy that they need to pull back. They may not follow my conversation. They may, those kinds of things because of this quick energy. That's one. So many of you would have the same energy type if it didn't get squelched by our family of origin and our parents. Energy type 2 is the more sensitive child. You can tell the way I talk is a kind of a 1 energy type. The 2 would be talking very much more gently, softer. They are sensitive to the emotions, and they connect to the world not socially but emotionally. They're affected by what is going on in the world. They're more subtle and thoughtful, probably more quiet and introverted. Their primary need is to have their feelings honored and to honor others' feelings, to have everyone in the family feel loved. That is their energy, especially as children. But you grow that up and you have a person who, because of their sensitivity to all that's around them, are going to have boundaries that are a little bit thicker, closer in, to guard themselves from all their feeling from other people. I have a child who's this energy type, and I think of her much more subtle energy, non-reactive, where the 1 and the 3 type we'll get to what might be pretty reactive in a situation. The 2 is very much more gentle, softer, harder to get to know, but also emotionally, when the emotional connection is made, it's strong, and their caring is deep. So that is the 2. So they would have energy boundaries that are closer in. The type 3 is the determined child. They connect with the world physically, hands-on. That's the kid you can notice in the daycare that's climbing up the furniture, that's taking things apart, putting things back together. They relate to the world in a very physical way, very task-oriented. They're active and determined, and their primary need is to be challenged. They hate to be bored, so they need to be challenged, and their need from their parents is to have that energy supported, that exploration energy, that determined energy supported by their parents. Now, if you're in a room with someone like this who has a sense about, okay, there's something over there they want to go do, they may blow right by you without saying hello. Their minds are focused and they are on go. So to have if 2 energy ready to have a quiet conversation may not be so easy with the 3. The 1s and the 3s tend to be active together, but the 3 tends to be more dominant because the 1 wants the 3 to be happy and is happy to let them lead the way because they can adjust and adapt to whatever is going on in the world. So, or with their relationships with this 1 type person, the 3 type energy that is determined and moving straight forward, moving through to their task. So each of those 3 types would have a very different way of making boundaries. It may be that the 3 wouldn't think so much about boundaries. And one of the things that Carol teaches about the 1 and the 3 energy is that because the 1 is in the moment, whatever's going on, that's what fills their plate. The 3 on a task, they may not be in touch for a while. If you're best friends with a 1 or a 3, you may feel like you're doing all the effort making in the friendship. It's not because you're not important to 1 and the 3. It has more to do with in that moment, the 1 is taking care of what's happening right now in that social or environment. The 3 is on task. And so if we're 1s and 3s, we may want to remind ourselves to be in touch with those we want to be, have relationships with on an ongoing basis. We want to be sure that we do our part in making that contact with those folks. And so the type 4 comes from an intellectual place. They come into the world thinking. They have a movement that's straightforward and exact because they've already thought through exactly how they need it to be. Very structured. The 2s are planners and detailers. The 4s have a structure and see things through. And so what they need from their parents is to be respected. And you can grow this up. What they need from their friends, from their family, is to have their perspective respected, but also to respect yours. To have the family members respect them, as well as being able to respect. It's hard when if you can imagine that 4 energy having a clear view of how things should be. My 4 energy daughter said to me when she was 4 or 5, "Mom, you're not going to wear that." I was like, "Oh yes, I believe I am." But she found that unable to be respected. So if I had known about these energy types, it would have been much easier on her and on me as she grew up in my environment. And so if you have the different types of energies, your boundaries are going to be different. You can imagine, if you're a 4 type, that your structure, you're going to be very much more guarded, have very many fewer close friends, but be very loyal to the close friends that you do have. You have maybe a layer, tons of that second layer, third layer, third circle friendships that are more superficial, get together, have a good time. But for the core of who you are, you're going to have very much more clear boundaries. That may be hard for somebody like a 1 who is ready to be with you and be with you. And if it's not on your schedule as a 4, that doesn't work for you. Feelings can get hurt. So as we go through the boundaries, being aware of the boundaries we have, and aware that the people who are stepping on your toes and your boundaries are not intentionally doing that. They're just coming from their own energy in a natural way until they learn. And how they learn is for you to sit them down and say, this is Miguel Ruiz, Don Miguel Ruiz, the 4 agreements. The first is be impeccable with your word. In setting boundaries and having relationships with people who have different energy than you, if we can sit them down and say, when you come by without a plan, this doesn't work for me in my life. So I need for you to know, either be invited or, I want you in my life, but I need for you to know that I've structured my life in a way that I need to know that you're coming by, need for that to have been planned and not be just a drop by. When we're impeccable with our word, with our friends, with our families, with our coworkers, when we set the boundaries clearly, because how can they keep our boundaries if they don't know what they are? No, they don't just know us, because they think it's easy to think everybody's like us. So we just act in the energy and out of the energy that we have, thinking that's how it works for everybody. And no, it doesn't work for everybody that way. So very deliberately being aware of our own energy, and then becoming aware of others' energy, and saying when it doesn't work for us and how you would like it to look for your relationship to continue. Because you want your relationships, especially those close to you, you want them to work for a lifetime. And so without those boundaries set, one of the things that has happened in my life as a 1, because I've got this quick reaction, quick mind. A person who perhaps is a 2 wants to tell a story in the details and tell all the details and everything that happened, what the other person said, what they said. My energy is like, come on. Give me the Reader's Digest version, which for you young folks is taking a big story and making it a small story. So I have to be aware that's my energy. It's not their energy. And if I'm going to make them happy, which is what I truly would like, if I've got the time to sit and listen, then listen to the details. Because otherwise you seem rude, because you're cutting them off, you're interrupting them, trying to get them to move on to the next thing. That would be the 1. The 3 might be even stepping on them and telling their story that story reminded them of, barreling on through. So if you're with someone with that energy, you can say, please, I'd like to finish what I'm talking about. Let me finish what I'm saying. We all have different energies. We all need different boundaries. The safety is important, especially for a 2 and a 4 energy type, not to have their boundaries trespassed. So we want to be impeccable with our word, and Scripture says it this way: let your yes mean your yes, and your no mean no. And you don't need to swear by anything. Just be impeccable with your word. The second Ruiz agreement, these are agreements with ourselves that we don't want to break, because we will have a peaceful life if we keep these 4 agreements. I'm only going to talk about 2 of these today. So Don Miguel Ruiz, the 4 agreements. In my world, these agreements, even though from a different spiritual background, they are exactly what Jesus was talking about in the Sermon on the Mount. So the spiritual truths come in many different layers, in many different languages, spiritual languages. But the second one that he says is, take nothing personally. If someone comes barreling through over our story, it's not personal to us. It's just their energy. They don't have an idea probably that they have stepped on anybody's boundaries, because they're just acting normally out of their energy. So it's not about us. It's not about the other person when I might interrupt or try to speed up a story. That's my energy. Please, if you're my friend or if you're online as we continue these chats, put up a little sign. Can you go over that again? You went over that too fast. Or let's talk a whole chat about a particular thing that I might have just said in 1 or 2 sentences. Taking nothing personally is what I believe Jesus meant when he said, turn the other cheek. Even if they hit you on one cheek, it's not about you. It's about their anger, their energy, their fear. And you turn the other cheek. You don't take it personally. They ask you for a coat. You give them your cloak too. It's not about you. It's about their energy. Now, one of the things that's happened in our world because of this internet, Facebook, ability to say happy birthday to 5 people at once and to receive, we have total access to anyone who is online or has a smartphone on the other side of the world. That access has broken down boundaries that were natural to our parents and natural to those who are in my generation. So the future of boundaries is different. You can't get by with doing anything in public without it going public. So we need to be very aware of what we want to be out there publicly. In the old days, my mother's warning to us is don't write down anything you don't want to be read out loud publicly. And now we can't do anything because people are taking pictures. We can't say anything without somebody possibly having recorded it. We have to be aware that we want to keep our boundaries more carefully in this day and age of nothing is secret. Nothing is secret. There was a news item this morning that more celebrities have been hacked, and so the pictures that they thought would always be private are now online. We can't even keep anything secretly without the possibility of it being hacked. And so we want to be careful. Now, this brings up something that was a response, a comment to our last chat, which was about helping people when they get bad news. This comment came from a person who had just been through the tragic loss of their home burning. And what he said was that while he got tons of people responding and reacting and reaching out in the comments of what he had posted on Facebook, reaching out by email, reaching out by text, he became hungry to hear another person's voice. No one was calling because they were all doing it by text, or they were all doing it in response on Facebook. let's remember that those close to us, those in our inner circle, maybe our second circle, need to hear our voice when we want to be attentive to something that's happened in their lives. The boundaries of the internet and the online abilities are keeping us in some ways from being close to one another, to hear the voice. Maybe it's that the younger folks who grow up with this way of communicating won't be hungry for that. But those who are in our generation become hungry to hear the person's voice, to know that they're being heard as well, that their voice is being heard. They say that the future of boundaries, as we continue to develop as human beings, those who are sensitive number twos are going to can already pick up on our energy. I have a friend that moved out of an apartment complex because she was picking up on the energy of all the people that lived in the apartment building. They say that our personal energy reaches out in all directions 27 feet. That's in many different teachers teach that. And so our energy, as we become aware of our nature, aware of our boundaries, aware of the peace that we're bringing to the world, knowing that the person on the other side of the grocery store is affected by how we come in to buy our groceries. That person's energy affects us. That as a grocery store clerk or a store clerk, you are affecting every being that walks through or comes in within 27 feet. They say that we can pick up on the energy. Maybe that's the love at first sight thing, is we pick up on who we are as a joined energy just in that moment of being in each other's space. We all affect each other in those ways. I heard, who knows where I heard this lately, but it was a podcaster, that the magnetics of the earth affect each of us the same. And so we're always moving in tandem with the earth's energy, that we are all within 27 feet of, but the earth has its own frequency, its own energy. The magnetics affect that, and those magnetics affect us. We are affected in so many ways. We are not slaves to those other ways. And the more we are aware of who we are, what our energy is, what we need from others, what we need, our biggest need, if it's to make people happy, if it's to help people feel loved, that's the number two. Number one is to help people feel happy. Number three is to be challenged and have others respect us and be respectful. That's a four. Be challenged and have our need to be out there in contact, physical contact with the world, have that honored. And the number four is to have their boundaries respected, have their intellect and their thought process honored. Now, we're not talking here about the kind of transgression, trespass of boundaries that results in physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. That's a whole other thing. That you can find experts to talk about in many places. What we're talking about here is, as we're trying to become healthier people, as we're trying to become more and more peaceful, stepping one step at a time into our peace, uncovering, and this was one of the gifts of these natures, is as you uncover what doesn't belong to you, you can let it go and live into the truth of the energy that you are. Because women in my day were all taught to be twos. If you weren't a two, demure, quiet, sensitive, then you weren't a young lady. You weren't the Southern belle. So what we need to unlearn is as big as what we need to learn. about our energy type. Carol Tuttle stuff is on the internet. She has books. She has a lot of videos, YouTube videos, and some programs you can join as well. We are about coming into peace with ourselves, and because when we walk into a room with peace, we're going to affect others and they will become more peaceful. If we come in angry, they're going to pick up on that anger and react to that. Even when they can't know, we think we've hidden it so well, we're guarded against it. These chats, please make comments even after the fact so that we can respond in future chats to those particular items. I'm getting this up and running. I had some commitments, and so now it should be every Monday, and I hope to have you join me here. Thank you so much for being here to listen to this particular chat about setting healthy boundaries. There's no one way to do that. There's my way for me. There's your way for you. People won't know what your boundaries are unless you are willing to tell them, willing to share with them in a way that they can hear you. Let us all be mindful of each other's boundaries so we can walk this earth together toward the peace that we're meant to have. This is from my heart to yours. Bye-bye.